Welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast, the podcast that gives you immediate actions that you can take to start seeing life-shifting results now.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast. This is Mark Cardone.
And Theron Fight.
And we are joined, across the pond today by a guest from overseas, Lisa Liljeberg. Lisa, how are you today?
I'm great. I've had my afternoon lunch coffee. I'm ready to go.
I know. I like
espresso.
I like drinking my morning coffee while someone else is just like after lunch. That's a amazing the technology.
If you'd interviewed me a little later, I would have had my glass of wine.
See, we should do that next time. We'll do wine in the morning and wine in the evening, just like straight across. It'll be perfect. But Lisa, for our listeners who don't know who you are, you, like I said, you were referred to us by Lisa Eklund, who we just did an interview with, and she raved about you. So we wanted to have you on. But could you tell our listeners a little bit about what you do?
Sure. I like to say that I help people create a life they never want to retire from. And I got into doing this because I, for about 14 years, was an international biking and hiking guide, and I guided all kinds of people all over the planet. And these were who I considered to be very successful people. And in the end, they were jealous of my lifestyle because I was doing what I wanted. I was living in Italy. I was kind of living their dream. And that really got me to thinking. And I eventually went back to school to study coaching so that I could, now I say, help people stop daydreaming and start dare dreaming so they can actually make things happen instead of just dreaming about it. So in a nutshell, that's what I do. And I do it via my coaching, via my online course, my Wild Wednesdays on Facebook, and my own little, this is my, I don't know what the word is. I love doing it. I have my own expeditions company, Wild Thing Expeditions, and I take women on retreats all over the world so they can get away from their everyday life and really, really have time to reflect and go back home knowing what needs to change and how to do it.
That's awesome. Wow. So I'm interested in the inspiration side of it. I'm sure when people are going through the experience with you, they get inspired. I'm curious, do you have any like stories that really were amazing?
You mean from people that have traveled with me?
Yes, for sure. Yep.
Yeah. One in particular just stands out. On my last safari, a woman came up to me about halfway through the trip and she said, before I went on this trip, everybody told me that a safari would change my life. And I was like, yeah. And she looked at me in the eyes and she said, guess what? I said, it changed your life? She said, yes. And it wasn't just the safari. It was the whole bonding of this group of wonderful women and storytelling and sharing our lives and really inspiring each other with these stories. So that's one story, but
well, yeah. Something you said was really interesting, and it was how you were a tour guide for some of these people who were very successful, who maybe had money and could afford to do these things, but at the same time they were looking at you saying, wow, like how cool would it be to not have to do what I'm doing now, and to be able to do what you're doing. And I it's amazing how much that success level is really kind of a thing our brain builds for us, and we always see it out there, but we rarely see our own successes and how lucky we are.
Absolutely, yes. I have, for most of my adult life, I was comparing myself to everybody else, which is what we all do. And in my own eyes, I was not successful. These people I was guiding were successful. And it was so funny to have it flip back on me and have them be envious of me. So that's why I also say, answer the call to your wild, which is listening to that little voice in your own head and following it, or your heart, if you will, instead of doing what you're supposed to do.
That's awesome. And I think when I think about that a little bit, I think there's an old saying, it's lonely at the top, and I know we've all
Yeah.
heard that. And I find that, and tell me what you think about this, but, when people reach that certain level where maybe we have, maybe there's money, maybe we have the house we've always wanted, they're working 24 hours a day to maintain that level. And I feel like people become very isolated at that level to a certain extent. I mean, they're around people all the time, because I think if you're in business and you're at that level, you have to be. But I think there's always that little feeling of isolation when you get there. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I do, because I think, again, the comparison thing that everybody does, when you are that successful, people tend to sort of put you on a pedestal. So you are sort of unreachable or untouchable or something like that. And I imagine that it can be very lonely for these people.
Yeah.
I had some great conversations with all of these people. I mean, I had never been on a private jet and a private trip with these people on this jet. And I was like, oh my God, this is just incredible. But as you have to do to maintain all of that is not something I want to do. And that's something I have always known. I've never whirled for that very reason. It was like, don't want to do that. I don't need all of that.
Yeah.
Well,
So
yeah, and I think yeah, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I just wanted to say that people see that maybe they really don't have to do all of that. It's enticing. It's very enticing for people to look at that possibility.
Yeah, I think when you're young, especially when you're young, success means money and wealth, right? That's what success means. And I think oftentimes people don't grow out of that. They become adults and they're always searching for money. They want to be a millionaire, then a multimillionaire, et cetera. And there's nothing wrong with that. But also, I think what you do is you really dig into what do you really want? Is that because we know money's not going to make us happy, right? It's the lifestyle. So if you don't mind talking about the lifestyle piece of success, I think that would be interesting. Okay,
the lifestyle piece of success. What I often have my clients do is literally define for them what that means. And what they often discover is that it's not about the big house and the fancy car and all that stuff. It's about having time to enjoy the coffee in the morning and maybe watch the sunset in the evening instead of running around all day to maintain all of this. So I use the analogy of the carrot that you hang on a pole in front of the horse, and the horse just focuses on the carrot and it'll go really fast.
Yeah.
Carrot boy just wants that carrot and it never gets it. It's always out there in front. There's always another mirage there. And then once you get there, it disappears and you're not happy.
Right.
Until you define truly what makes you happy. And most people don't really think about it. They just think, like you said, 1 million, now I need 5 million, now I need 10 million. And if you really stop and ask yourself, you might be surprised at the answer.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think it's really interesting how, you're an example of this, right? You're an example of somebody who decided you wanted something different, right? I don't want what I'm doing. I want to do something else. And, trying to show people that you can exist, sustain, and succeed doing something that you like. Like, you don't have to just get a job, right? And trudge through life, which I feel like people almost like, I'm not going to waste my time thinking about what I want because I know that's not realistic. I have to do this. It's not what people do, right? People get jobs, people do stuff, and we leave the things we wanted back there someplace later. So I feel like it's great because you almost give people permission, to start to think about this.
It's funny because on my site it says, if you're looking for permission to dream again, you've come to the right place. And it's true. And I often, I'll ask people what they want and they'll say, I don't know. And everybody says that, I don't know. And my response to that is, yes, you do. You just might think you can't have it. And that's what we're starting to work with, allowing yourself to dream again, and then get there.
Yeah. We did a really, we had an interview a while back with a guy named Dan Chilbert, and we talked a lot about imagination and how when you're a kid, you're born with this tremendous gift. You know what I mean? Like just this thing where anything is possible. And then as you get older, it goes away, and I think it's really interesting because even then, like I think about my kids, and if I said, hey kids, like, what do you want to do? What do you want to be when you grow up? It's less about limits and it's more about too many options, right? Like when they have trouble saying it, it's because it's like, well, geez, I don't know if I want to be a dancer. I don't know if I want to be a hairstylist. I don't know if I want to be but when you're older, it's like, well, nothing's realistic except for what I'm doing, so it's amazing how that transformation happens over years.
I'm so glad you said that, because the one thing I did actually have ready is a quote that I absolutely love. Are you guys familiar with Maxwell Maltz, who wrote Psycho-Cybernetics back in 1960?
Yeah.
He was a plastic surgeon. Yeah. Anyway, this comes from him, and it says, the imagination, aimless, may provide pleasant entertainment. Applied purposefully, it can effectively your self-image, and in turn, your automatic success lies whatever goals you choose. And I just love that, because that's actually the crux of what I do with people. We use imagination. We use dream and then turn that into a dare dream. It's like, it's fun it feels good when you do that, and you're actually dumping the system, which in turn motivates you to do something. So it's actually a process, and we're using to begin to move towards our dreams. It's fun and exciting, and I just love this stuff.
Well, I mean, it's fascinating because you are helping people think, what if, right? Like, what if there were no boundaries? What if I could do these things? I mean, you're literally injecting people with hope, right? And yes, I think,
absolutely.
when we say the words, like, well, I gave up on my hopes and dreams, right? I always feel like the word hope gets, kind of smashed out there. Nobody really thinks about it. They just focus on the dreams part, but I mean, hope is such an important thing. And I think the fact that you're helping people find it is so important.
Yes, I agree with you. And I've done exactly that so many times in my life. I've reinvented myself so many times that I'm kind of good at it. Give you a very quick rundown. I started as a flight attendant with Lufthansa. I've waited tables I don't know how many times. I was a building contractor. I built houses with my own hands. I went back to design when I realized I couldn't build houses forever. Old, I was 42. I went back to school. That moved me to Italy. Then I needed a job to pay for school. I started guiding. And at the end of guiding, I went back to school at 57 to become a life coach. So if you're looking for somebody who's an example of it's not too late, it's never too late, I think I'm a good example. One gives people hope.
That's awesome. I think people get stuck in ruts for sure, right? And whether it's our job or career, relationships happens often, and I think that's why one of the reasons we did this podcast is to expand people's thinking, right? And especially since we started doing interview a week, where before we would do an interview a month, but we really saw the value of really getting other people's ideas like you. So I think that's so powerful when you can give people hope and get them to dream and get them motivated to do that.
Yes.
So that's awesome. And the reinvention, I think,
Yeah.
that is huge. That's huge.
And I want to talk about that for a second, because I think it's funny. I think about, like people that I know who if you said, look, we're going to just imagine what you can be, right? Like, here's all the things you can be. And if you can actually give someone permission and get them to that point, the next logical question is, well, what if I pick the wrong one? Right? Like what if I agree with you, Lisa, and I'm committed, right? I'm committed and I've got 20 things that I think I would love, but what if I pick the wrong one and I suck at it? Right? Like talk like let's talk about that.
I've had people say exactly that. What if somebody was going into retirement? What if I picked the wrong thing? What if you do?
I've only got
I might a shot.
Right. I might only have a few like 40 years of my life left, right? Like what if I pick the wrong thing?
What is wrong? Is having a new experience and learning something wrong? I don't think so. So if you can look at it as a mistake, or you can look at it as a learning, a lesson, and try something else. I mean, I've literally had people say, do you have any idea how old I'll be if I do that? And I say, yeah, exactly the same age as you'll be if you don't do it. And how are you going to feel if you don't?
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So really the way I feel about it, I so many things it's not funny. I mean, I forgot to put that I was trying to do commodities trading, and I got really good at it on paper, but it was so boring. I did not like it. So I sucked at it.
Yeah.
I made the wrong choice.
Yep.
Okay, great. Let's go back to the drawing board and pick something else that's a little more fun.
Yeah. You learn that maybe that wasn't the right thing, and we'll do the next one. Right.
Right. I mean, you know, if something fits, you have to try it on. It's like clothes. You have to try it on. If it doesn't fit and doesn't look good, it's not the right color, great. Try something else.
Well, and
it's never too late.
This is a common conversation that I hear, and I think it's funny. I'll talk to some of my friends who are, maybe they're in the same job they've had since college, right? And I have one friend in mind specifically, and he goes, well, it took me 42 years to get here. Like, I don't have 42 more years to focus on a new career. And I go, well, you're 42. It didn't take you 42 years to get here in your career. It probably took you 10 years, because the first 20 years, you were not focused on this, right? So, but it's amazing how we relate age, and we think, well, geez, I'm 42, so if I do it over again, I'll be 84. It's like, no,
right.
Really, you've probably been in this specific area of focus for maybe 5 or 10 years. And like you said, if you start now, 5 years from now, you could be in an amazing place, or 5 years from now, you'll still be the same age you'd be anyway. So just might as well do it.
Exactly. Great. I mean,
so
I totally get that.
I'm curious of how do you coach them to overcome their fear, right? Their fear of changing, their fear of, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yes, I do. What I like to say is fear, an acronym for future events appearing real. Afraid, you're imagining the worst. It's like, oh God, what if?
Mm-hmm.
And then I will simply ask the person to imagine the best possible outcome. You are in control of what you're imagining. Right. And your brain does not know the difference. Mm-hmm. Literally, your reticular activation system doesn't know the difference between daydreaming and reality. So when you're possible outcome, fear kicks in and you stop in your tracks. And when you do that, you have a choice. Right in that very nanosecond, you can say, okay, I'm afraid, but what if, and then imagine the best possible outcome. And that does the opposite into your system, and you'll probably will go ahead with it and give it a shot. And if it doesn't work, okay, you learn something. Try again. It doesn't mean if you forever and ever, amen. So to answer your question, that's how I deal with fear. Because it's very real. We all do it. I mean, we are hardwired to look for the bad stuff.
Yeah.
You know, our reptilian brain, back in the caveman days, it's like, you have to be, and it's, anytime you try something new, your reptilian brain is going to go into red alert. Don't do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a choice. You can rationalize with it and say, you know what? I know you're trying to keep me safe. I've got it from here.
It's amazing because Lisa and I have talked about that a couple of times where, you have the choice between picking faith and picking fear, right? Anytime you try something new, your brain doesn't know the difference. They're both imaginary, to a certain extent. I mean, like, look, if I said I'm going to start flying off buildings, right? My brain says, don't do that. Like you're going to fail. Like it's certain, right? but for the most part with new ventures, we tend to believe the worst thing is going to happen, where if we just made that mindset switch and said, what if the best thing happened? What if everybody was rooting for me? What if, all these people came to my aid, when I was having a hard time? And when you start to think of things that way, all of a sudden you go, yeah, there's really no reason to be afraid.
Exactly. And I loved what you said about, if people came to my aid, you know what? Ask for help or support. And me for support, I feel great. It's like they've given me a gift by asking me for help because I get to help.
Yep.
And yet when we're so hesitant to ask for help, and really we're giving somebody a gift when we ask for help because they get to do something and it makes them feel good.
It's funny. One of the best tips I ever got on public speaking was that the crowd wants you to do well. And I think the same goes for coaching. Like when I hire a coach, I want my coach to be amazing. Like I'm not hiring a coach thinking, what the hell does this guy know? He's not going to be able to help me. I hire a coach thinking this guy's going to change my life and I'm going to do whatever he says. But on the other side of the table, as the speaker, right, you're thinking, oh, they're going to laugh at me. They're going to think I stink. They're not going to think I know what I'm talking. They're going to hear every little and it's just not the reality. The reality is other people, unless they're sociopaths, want you they want you to succeed.
I love that perspective. That's very true. Yes. I'll remember that next time I'm giving a talk.
And plus picture them in their underwear, because I think that's a thing too.
Oh, well, the other thing that somebody told me once about is there's one person, even out there, who wants your message, whatever, you're a success. There's somebody out there who wants to hear what you have to say. And it's not about you, it's about them. And that I thought was so valid. True. It's not about me. That's not why I'm up there. That's not why I do what I do.
Yeah.
I love helping people.
Now, Lisa, one thing, so let's talk about the retreats a little bit. Okay, so you bring a bunch of women together, you go on this amazing adventure, right, together, and you do this retreat. So I want to talk about after that. Okay, because I'm sure you have, how many people typically do you have on that in one of those sessions?
On my retreats, 12 people total.
Okay.
And I've had groups of 8.
Okay.
So.
And out of those people, sure. And out of those people, I'm sure there's people who are motivated at the end, and they are ready to change and they're ready to do things, but then they go home. Right. And we see this all the time. Like, I mean, even right now, there's people listening to this podcast who are fired up and they're ready to say, I want to find Lisa on the website and I want to start watching her Wednesday YouTube videos. But then the podcast is over. How do you keep people, how do you keep people motivated? Right. Beyond that.
Uh-huh.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, yes, one of the things I do is I have them write themselves a postcard while we're on a retreat, and depending on where we are, it can take a long time for it to get there. Just saying, remember what you promised yourself. You writing to yourself.
Yeah.
Promise yourself. So that's one of the things I do. That's kind of fun. I have a follow-up session with everybody a month after they've been back. And anybody who works with me, I forever, anytime they need, I call it a tune-up, they can schedule just one session, because we all get off track sometimes, and it just takes a positive with a friend or with a coach or with somebody who believes in you and will push. Basically what I do is I push people. It's you're standing at the edge of the zip line and you're afraid to go. I'm the one who's going to give you that little push over the edge. You can wing something.
That's awesome.
So, but it is fun. It's amazing to work with people on the trip and the wisdom that everybody shares. It's not like it's me. It's this group wisdom and group support and group believing in that is. There's so much energy there that continues, and people stay in contact with each other. A group for everybody, to support each other afterwards, and it's the group energy is magic. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're facilitating that, and that's I think a sign of a great coach is you're bringing out and making the team better. Not necessarily what you're doing directly, but what you're doing indirectly.
Right.
To get them to communicate, to get them to trust each other, to get them to interact in a correct way.
Right.
I just as you're talking, I can imagine what you do and the magic really that happens. It's outstanding. I love it.
Yeah, it's really fun.
That's
Sitting
great.
on safari and sharing animal wisdom is really magical. Absolutely, yes.
Well, we can learn so much from nature. There's so many laws of nature that we forget in our busy technology. I have screens all around me here, even though I have books in my background.
Yes,
I
yes,
have
me too.
in front of me, right? So right. I think it's important that we get back in touch with nature. Can you talk about that a little bit? Yeah, we're all not going to be able to go on a safari, living in the, if we're living in Liverpool.
And you don't have to. Yeah, that's the point, is you don't have to. And one of my rules for myself, and my partner will say this if she sees that I'm not in a good space, she will just say, go outside. And I say that to myself often. Go outside. Just go outside and look up and look around you and take your shoes off and walk around in the grass.
Right.
And come back to your natural self, who you are, without the masks we all wear.
Right.
Not all the time. You have roles you play in life, but there's times where you can just go outside and be in nature by yourself. Even in Liverpool, there are parks.
Yeah.
And I love to, I have books on animal wisdom and the messages the animals have for us. And I will often see an animal, I'll look it up in the book and see what the message is for me. And the thing that is most powerful about that is that it's you who are interpreting the message. So really it's a way for you to connect with your own higher wisdom. Because no matter what, you interpret it, and it's you connecting with your own higher wisdom, I think, when you have a message from nature, from the animals.
Yeah.
Right.
So we use that a lot on all of my trips, actually.
That's fascinating.
I do it myself. When I come home from my walks, I look up the animals I saw that day to see what messages they had for me.
You'll have to share that book with us, and we can.
I will. I'd love to.
That's really interesting because I'm a big fan of I can't even talk today. I'm a big fan of grounding, like just going outside and standing in the grass, and and kind of once a day just getting that feeling of being not sitting in this little room. Yes. So I think that's a great thing to share.
Yeah, I have my coffee outside every morning, and I go outside to watch the sunset every evening. I'm outside for those
Fresh
2
beats.
moments of the day
Yeah.
that are my favorite.
It's amazing what
And-
oxygen and sunlight can do for you.
Yes. And look, right here is my book. I have it always with me.
Oh, wow.
It's called Animal Speak Pocket. It's a pocket guide, so you can stick it in your pocket. It's by Ted Andrews, and it's a wonderful little book.
Okay. I'm writing it down
And
right
we
now
can-
because I want to check it out.
Ted Andrews, Animal Speak Pocket Guide. He's got the big book too. I have his Bible, but this is enough. This is enough
Uh-huh.
to get your little messages. It's like the I Ching or the tarot cards. It's the same idea. It's how you interpret it
Right.
that is the message for you for the day.
Yeah.
And it's good stuff.
I'm
Really good
envisioning
stuff.
myself outside whistling and having the birds just land on me, like a Disney cartoon, and just speak, It'll probably
Of
be,
course you are.
it'll definitely be more like Dr. Doolittle than that, but that's okay. No, I'll definitely check that out. That looks really interesting.
Yeah, it's fun. It's good stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, American Indian wisdom too. And one of the things that I share with people is that the Native Americans, when they're making any decision, this is something we can only think about how it's going to affect people 7 generations from now. 7 generations.
Wow.
They're thinking about the future.
Right.
And that's something we could learn from.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. Totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have trouble focusing on one.
Exactly.
Like 7 is
One
that's
lifetime is all we've got enough.
that's right. So Lisa, as we wrap up here, just, if you had a couple of action items for people, like that are listening, that are on this podcast, that just want, like, they're inspired and they want to take action today, what would a couple things be you would tell them to do?
I would tell them to every day for about 5 minutes, daydream. They think about the best possible scenario you can come up with for your life 3 years from now. Because we tend to overestimate what we can do in a year, but we underestimate what we can do in 3 years. And just put that picture in the universe. And then think backwards and decide one tiny little thing you can do today to move towards that dream. It can be as little as researching something on the internet. A big step.
Mm-hmm.
But do the 5 minutes every day, because you are programming your little radar in your head to start moving you in the right direction. And it feels good. It's easy to do and it feels good. Therefore, you will probably do it.
Right.
That's awesome. Yeah. And if people want to, find you, follow you and stuff like that, where are the best places for them to find you?
You are going to find me at daredreamers.net and wildthingexpeditions.com. And you will find me on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel for my Wild Wednesdays, which I do on Facebook every Wild Wednesday.
Yeah, and for people listening, the Wild Wednesdays are really nice because they're short, they're impactful, and I've been watching them since I met you, which is a couple of weeks now. But the ones I've seen have been very, very good. So I definitely recommend people check them out.
Thank you. Yeah, I do keep them short. They're 5 to 9 minutes maximum, and there are always actionable steps you can do right now to just feel good and move towards your dreams.
Wow, that sounds familiar. Our podcast used to be Our podcast used to be 5 to 9 minutes with actionable steps, but then we started meeting interesting people like you, and now we can't keep them. Now we can't keep them short anymore because there's too much great stuff to put out there. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for being on. I just want to, really, I know it was short notice. We kind of reached out. Thank you very much for being on the podcast. I think there was so much just great information for people to listen to and take action on.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you. It's been a privilege to be here and share with everybody. And I look forward to meeting personally one day.
Absolutely. And to
Thank
all of our listeners, thank you for listening to this episode of the Achieve Results Now podcast. Please be sure to subscribe and share this podcast with anybody that you think would benefit, which I think is everybody. So share away, and thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening. Hop over to our website at www.achieveresultsnow.com to get your free copy of our ebook, Ignite Results, 4 specific daily actions to help you achieve results now. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/achieveresultsnow, Instagram at Achieve Results Now, and on Twitter at Now Achieve. Thanks for listening, commenting, and subscribing. Now get out there and achieve results now.